Okay, so we're back in the combat game again, and this time we're going to make a custom weapon for the player to use. And we'll also show how to make that a purchasable object. You'll need to stop the game to be able to see all the things on the platform, including the player weapon. So let's do that. And then we're just gonna copy the sword. Just as a reminder, the ranged weapons don't work on mobile right now, so if you're targeting mobile, you'll probably want to use a sword or make a club or something. So we're just gonna copy one for now and just move it over here. Then after we have our copy, we're going to unlink it from template because we're going to be making a brand new sword to add to the player's selection. We'll go and find some art to use for it. So the player actually can't get any of the enemy weapons right now, so we could use the art from an enemy weapon if we wanted, or we could do a recolor of this original sword. Almost any of the swords that are straight up and down could actually be swapped in here. You just might have to adjust the voxel offsets to get it in the right position on the template here, but just to make things easy, I think I'm just gonna go and take one of these. Now there's a little trick if you're worried about the new art being in exactly the same place as the old art. You can add a new voxel component, so you have a second voxel component on, and put your sword on there. We'll just use this old sword. You can see it's like Z fighting, it's overlapping with the original sword, but I can see that the handles are in basically the same place. So it's already lined up right, which makes sense because I'd lined it up for an NPC. But if you brought in a different sword that wasn't lined up correctly, you could use these offset values to shift it around until the handle was in the same spot, and that way it'll be easier when you go to have your character hold it. You won't have to mess with it very much. So we'll just take away the old art voxel component because we don't need it now. We're going to rename it to Old Sword A, and we're going to go down to the combat script and maybe just change a few of the values on it. We'll just lower the damage just a smidge compared to the other sword because it's like rusty and stuff. Let's make that one 8 and that one like 12 maybe. But we'll leave everything else the way it is. Okay, so now we're gonna copy the name we made. We're going to make a new template and we're going to save our template. So the sword exists, but there's no way for the player to buy it, and that's not very good. So there's a couple things that need to happen for the player to be able to buy a sword. It needs to be in the weapon database. So if we go in here, we see that there's a script for each of the weapons the players can buy. Grab a copy of one of the scripts, and then we're gonna wanna go paste as new, and it'll add it to the bottom of the list. And we're gonna call this one, whatever we named it. I think it was like Old Sword A, I think. This ID is for you, but I just am keeping it the same as my object just so I don't get confused. So Old Sword A, and we'll make the display name the same thing. Now it needs an icon. The icon is just a flat version of the art that has a pivot in a very specific position. So I'll show you quickly how to do that now. So we're going to want to remix the sword object that I want to make the icon of. And the icon is not going to have any depth to it. It doesn't really matter if it has this depth. The depth won't hurt anything. But you could just like get rid of this line of voxels and this line if you wanted. Because they're not going to show up. You won't be able to see the shading or anything like that. It's just going to look flat. So normally what I do is I just grab them and the ones at the front and I pull them in so that their color is on top, and then I just get rid of the ones at the back because they won't show. So this is now flat. It's just essentially a pixel painting. We're gonna now just reposition it. Just visualize this as an image painted on a piece of paper, and you want the top corner of the piece of paper to be right at this point. So that's the UI system is using that to figure out how to place your image. So I know it looks kind of odd to pull it under the floor plane, but that's what you do to make your icon. Now we might have to change the size on this icon. It might be too big or whatever, but we'll fix that if we need to rename it so that we know it's an icon, it's not the sword art itself, and then we can hit save. We are going to put that icon we just made right here, and then below that we're going to make the template we previously made of the old sword. And we can scroll down, see if there's anything else we want to change. I don't think so. I think that's all fine. So now the weapon exists in the game in the sense that the game knows that's a player sword, but there's still no way for the player to get it. The last thing we have to set up to add a sword is we're going to have to add one of these little weapon stands. We'll just sort of put it in the middle of the way. So we'll just copy both of those pieces. Gotta pull it back up out of the ground just from how it's built. So the stand is just nothing. It's just some art to make it look pretty, and it has a script on it that's making it sort of pulse, the lighting on it pulse to help attract the player's attention, but it's not actually doing anything else. All the other stuff is on this weapon that's out in the scene, and it's just a voxel object. It has text on it where the price is going to show, and it has a script called Purchasable object. The very top thing here is a data ID. That's actually the ID we just created over here when we made our weapon data. So if we go here and we copy this, I always copy and paste these things because I make spelling mistakes everywhere, and your thing will not run if you make a spelling mistake on the data. I'm just going to paste the name, the ID I created. The purchase amount is how many you get when you purchase it. 1 is fine. This little formula is going to display a cost. That's fine. We don't need to change any of that stuff. So that should all be just good. So the other thing that I forgot to put down over here is that we actually need a cost on our weapon. I copied the data ID for the rusty sword, which doesn't have a cost because it's just the starter weapon you get. But if you look at any of the other ones, they all have a cost and the collectible ID that the cost is in. So it costs 3 and it costs coin. Coin is the gold money, and that's set up in the collectible database. That sword data is set up to cost 3 coin. And you could add a new currency like emeralds and set this up and type emerald here and have the cost in emeralds. You don't have to have just one currency like we have here. I want to know what is the cost of just the regular sword. Let's go find that one. Sword with ruby. And it has a cost of 3, but that's actually a better weapon than the one that I'm adding right now. So I'm going to make mine cost less than that. I'm going to make it cost 2, and I'm going to paste in the ID for that collectible, which is coin. Remove cost will pull the cost out. So the reason for this is, say that you wanted the player to get to a certain level of experience points and you had a collectible that was experience and they needed to have 10 experience before they could get a sword, but you didn't actually want to take the experience away from them, you just wanted to measure it, you could uncheck this box. Okay, so I think that should be everything. Let's just make sure that we've placed this correctly. That should be the actual data that we need, but then we also probably want to just change this piece of art to be the sword. We just swapped that out. Now it's the different thing. So let's just give this a shot and see if we missed anything. We have our buy button. I have just purchased one. Now if you hit F or hit this button, it brings up your icon. So it looks like our sword wasn't positioned correctly. So we're just gonna try to just move it around a little bit here and see what that does. Remember, you'll need to refresh the game to see changes to voxel objects. Just gonna escape to an enemy-free location. So I've just repositioned that, visualizing this is your piece of paper with that as your top corner. So we need to go down a little more and over a little more. Just refresh again. There, okay. So that seems good. I've switched to it. The icon's correct. I can see it in my hands. Let's just go test it. See how much damage it's doing. Maybe I'll test it on the bat. Okay, so it did 9 there, 11. So yeah, we've added the new weapon. It's working as I expected to. I didn't double check that it took away the right amount of money, so we can quickly test that and make sure that's working too by resetting our data. So the reset data button is made for exactly scenarios like this, so you can test things over and over, and that's this button right here. So what you should do is just hit that. It's going to erase the data your character had, and then just hit refresh afterwards. Sometimes you can hit bugs if you refresh your data, but don't refresh your session. I'm just going to do a quick run around and grab a few things. I just grabbed some potions, and I'm gonna go grab some money in the section over here so that we can test. Easiest money to grab is just that coin pile. Its cost is 2 coins. We have 6 coins up there. We buy. Now I only have 4 coins and I have the sword. Perfect. So we have added a new weapon to our game. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.